It's officially the new league year. We've seen many departures, and yet what we thought was going to be a catastrophe, Howie Roseman comes in clutch on day 2 of legal tampering. We're talking the latest free agency news pertaining to the Eagles, along with some of the wildest moves across the league, including an unprecedented move involving one of the best defenders in the NFL right now. Without wasting any more time, let's dive right into it. What's up, y'all, and welcome to 2nd and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast powered by Olde City Sports Network, the best network for all your Philadelphia sports needs. This is your host, Michael Roscoe. We just passed the official start of free agency. However, the legal tampering period began Monday, and since then, we've seen some shocking moves all across the league. But before we get into those, let's talk the latest Eagles free agency news. All right, so yeah, at first I was like a lot of Eagles fans probably were, and I wasn't sure what the fuck Howie Roseman was exactly doing, considering Monday there was no return upon all the departures, but as the week went on, we finally saw some moves from him. But let's go ahead and talk about the departures first. The first departure we're going to talk about is edge rusher Jaelan Phillips. This was the guy I believed that the Birds needed to make their number one priority. However, Phillips will be taking his talents to Charlotte as he signs a 4-year, $120 million deal with the Carolina Panthers. Now, the Eagles did make attempts at re-signing him. It's not like they just said, fuck it, and let him go. And Howie Roseman emphasized this in the press conference at the Combine in his prioritization of Eagles players first, and he made an attempt to keep that true with Jaelan Phillips. Previous reports had indicated that the Eagles were working on a contract with Phillips that would have given him $20 million a year. However, money talks, and when another team can offer you $10 million more per year like Carolina can, 99% of the time, that player is going to take the larger payday. Some people are saying that the Panthers overpaid for him, but what do y'all think? Let me know in the comments section if you think Phillips is getting overpaid, underpaid, or fairly paid. Regardless, the Panthers are getting a fantastic player who helped turn this defense around midway through the season. A player who's overcome multiple debilitating injuries. Carolina gets a catch in Jaelan Phillips, whether he's overpaid or not. Thank you, Jaelan Phillips, for all your help this year, and you will be missed in Philly. The next departure we'll talk about is safety Reed Blankenship. Blankenship signed a 3-year, $24.5 million deal with the Houston Texans, ending his tenure in Philadelphia. Reed started out as an undrafted free agent who earned a roster spot back in 2021, and since then has climbed his way to the top as one of the best players and leaders from this current Eagles team. This one hurts me a bit for a couple of reasons. One, it means that right now our number one safety is second-year player Andrew Makuba, who by no means is a bad player at all. He will just be coming off of injury, and we're unsure of how much that'll impact his production going into this next season. Then behind him, you have special teams players and practice squad guys, essentially. If we don't make a splash at safety in free agency, we may need to trade up in the draft to get a safety, especially with how impressive this class of safeties were at the Combine. The Birds have never drafted a safety in the first round, but with Blankenship heading to Houston, that could change this year. Second, the move splits up the exciting whites, and how could we do that, guys? Him and Eagles cornerback Cooper DeJean have taken social media by storm with their iconic duo nickname Exciting Whites, along with their podcast Exciting Mics. DeJean took to social media expressing his emotions as his best friend departs for a new city, and it feels like we're experiencing a bad breakup, you know? Like, Obviously, they're still going to be best friends, but witnessing all this emotion from DeJean and then seeing Reed Blankenship's Instagram post and how much he'll always have love for Philadelphia for giving him that chance, it's like a damn breakup, or like your favorite TV characters breaking up, and it feels like they broke up with us as well. I'm not exactly sure how they'll work out the podcast, but if they're motivated enough, they're going to find a way. Nonetheless, the Birds took a chance on an undrafted free agent out of Middle Tennessee State University and ran with it. And they ran with it all the way to him becoming a team captain and an integral part of this Philadelphia defense over the last 4 seasons. Blankenship, you will be missed, brother, and best of luck to you down in Texas. The next Eagle to depart in free agency was linebacker Nakobe Dean. Dean signed a 3-year, $36 million deal with the Las Vegas Raiders, where he'll join another off-ball linebacker signed in free agency, Quay Walker from the Green Bay Packers. And it is very likely that these two guys are going to start alongside each other. While this does hurt to see Dean leave, it comes as less of a shock compared to these other moves, considering the Birds used their first-round draft pick in the 2025 draft on linebacker Jahad Campbell, who many predicted to become his replacement one day, if not into this next season. What I do like about this deal, though, is that he turned down a very similar deal offered from the Dallas Cowboys to go with the Raiders. Even when he's not on our team anymore, it is still fuck the Cowboys. Nonetheless, Dean has been an absolute baller for us, even going through his injuries and everything like that, and the Raiders are lucky to have him. I'm hoping he does well and stays healthy out there in Vegas. Another Eagle to depart in free agency was wide receiver Jahan Dotson. After spending 2 years in Philly, Dotson will move down I-95 to I-85 as he hits Atlanta on a 2-year, $15 million deal with the Falcons, with $10 million of that guaranteed. A former first-round pick for the Washington Commanders, who joined the Eagles 2 years ago, he mainly spent his time as a wide receiver 3, but we didn't see him utilized in a lot of ways that I think people hoped for and that his potential would have allowed him to do. But when they did use him, man, he came in fucking clutch. From extending drives to deep pass catches and the occasional sneaky touchdown, Dotson was by no means a liability, and Atlanta will get a quality player. Next, we had offensive lineman Matt Pryor, who after a second stint in Philadelphia, he will sign a 1-year deal with the Arizona Cardinals. He was a guy who was able to help the Birds with their O-line issues of becoming decimated with injuries. Not a huge playmaker, but a contributor nonetheless, so good luck to him in Arizona. Other smaller name departures include quarterback Sam Howell, who never saw action as a quarterback 3 sitting behind Hurts and McKee, as he will take a 1-year deal with the Dallas Cowboys. Then you have offensive lineman Brett Toth, who spent most of his time as a backup lineman, seeing some starts in 2025 as he departs to the San Francisco 49ers on a 1-year deal. Then you have edge rusher Josh Uche, who after signing a 1-year deal with the Eagles last season, will sign a 1-year deal with the Miami Dolphins for the 2026 season. And finally, edge rusher Azeez Ojulari, after spending most of his time with Philly on IR dealing with injuries, he will sign a 1-year deal with the Atlanta Falcons. All right, now that we got that depressing ass news out of the way, let's talk about the current extensions and contract restructures. Starting off with nose tackle, defensive lineman, whatever you want to call it, Jordan Davis. So defensive tackle, technically labeled as a nose tackle, Jordan Davis signed a 3-year extension worth $78 million, with $65 million of that guaranteed, making him the highest paid nose tackle in NFL history. And because they have him as a nose tackle, some people think he's like the highest paid defensive tackle in the league, which is not true because defensive tackle Chris Jones currently holds that title, as his contract is worth, I want to say, around $31 million anyway, but technically, Jordan Davis becomes the highest paid nose tackle in NFL history. And if you want to compare what his contract is like, it basically ties former Eagles defensive tackle Milton Williams' salary with the New England Patriots. Anyway, he had slimmed down 25, 30 pounds or so prior to the start of the season, and he easily had one of the best seasons, if not the best season, of his career. He would finish the season with 72 total tackles, 4.5 sacks, 6 pass deflections, which is tied second amongst all defensive tackles for the 2025 season, and one blocked kick return for a touchdown. One blocked field goal attempt returned for a touchdown, which of course came in week 3 to ice the game against the Los Angeles Rams. Davis's extension will actually benefit the cap this season, as he will only account for around, I want to say, $12 million, with this past year being Davis's best season and earning an extension because of it. Hopefully we see this level of production or more over the next 3 seasons as he's locked in until 2029. Congrats to Jordan Davis, and we're excited to see what else you have for this Eagles team. Next extension or restructure, we have defensive back Michael Carter II. Former Jets defensive back Michael Carter joined the Eagles in a trade that sent wide receiver John Mechie packing, and he has mainly been a depth player after a regression year in New York or so. His restructured contract significantly reduces what would have been a $10 million cap hit for the season. With our limited safety room, it's possible we could see Carter transition over to safety. I don't know how I feel about that, but nonetheless, he'll serve as your go-to backup player somewhere in the secondary whenever he may be needed. And finally, we have tight end Grant Calcaterra. Now, despite his liability in the blocking game, the Birds will retain Grant Calcaterra for, I think, at least another year. There hasn't been any detailed information as to what his contract will look like as of this time. The Birds see something in him, though, that sways them to keep him on. So far, serving as a backup tight end, Calcaterra has 42 catches for just under 500 yards and 2 touchdowns. All right, and finally, for this Eagles free agency news, as of Wednesday night this week, let's talk about who the Eagles have acquired. Starting off, we have cornerback Riq Woolen. Woolen departs Seattle as a Super Bowl champion at the end of his rookie deal to sign a 1-year prove-it deal with the Eagles worth up to $15 million. This is the type of signing the Birds should have done last season, y'all. But instead, we went and acquired guys like Jacorian Bennett and Adoree Jackson, and we all know how that turned out. Now, with Woolen, there are arguments about him being unable to contain his emotions or that he lacks discipline from time to time, which I'm not arguing against. There has been evidence of that. And this has caused him to not only demonstrate some inconsistency in his play, but also allowing key plays to occur for other teams because he's drawing penalties. We saw in the playoffs against the Rams, he had a taunting penalty that gave the Rams a first down after they failed to convert on a third down play, and then the Rams scored a touchdown on literally the very next play. But the Eagles get him on a team-friendly deal, as that $15 million isn't fully guaranteed, but it is an incentive if he balls the fuck out this year. Despite the concerns about emotions and discipline, Eagles defensive coordinator Vic Fangio doesn't fuck around. And if he is about this trade, then there is something that he definitely sees in him that outweighs the negative components. Fangio has completely turned this defense around since the end of the 2023 season, and I think him and along with the other Eagles defensive coaches, they can work with Woolen on the discipline issues, considering that if he wants that full $15 million and to land a massive deal after this year's contract, whether that be with the Eagles or someone else, he has got to get his discipline shit together. That is teachable, though. What isn't teachable is size and speed, and Woolen has got both. He's 6'4", around 200 pounds, and ran a 4.26 40-yard dash at his combine. That is crazy fast, y'all. If you look at his highlights from this year, despite only 1 interception, he was locking down receivers when he was dialed the fuck in. He had 12 pass deflections this season, and he's locking down receivers, making quarterbacks throw way fewer times his way compared to the counterpart on the opposite side. And think about this. Woolen was locking down guys on, caliber teams like the 49ers, who they played 3 times, the Rams, who they also played 3 times, the Bears, the Patriots, and along with some other teams, playing at least 10 games or so, maybe more, against teams that made playoff appearances. And even against the weaker teams, such as the Cardinals, he was always against great pass catchers such as Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride, who was one of the top tight ends in the league this past season. With this Woolen signing, the Eagles have one of the scariest looking cornerback trios that I have ever seen going into the season. You got Quinyon Mitchell and Reek Woolen on the outside. You got Cooper DeJean in the slot. Quarterbacks are going to be afraid to throw in this no-fly zone. An excellent and intelligent pickup by Howie Roseman. And finally, the Eagles have signed tight end Johnny Mundt to a one-year deal. Mundt departs Jacksonville after the first of his original two-year deal, which saves the Jaguars just under $3 million in cap space and adds depth to the tight end group for Philly. I don't think by any means that this signing indicates a Dallas Goedert departure, especially because as of Wednesday evening, it had been reported that Dallas Goedert has not been listed as a free agent by the league, as his void date on the contract was pushed back to Friday, giving him and the Birds more time to negotiate a contract. And we'll get more details as this story continues to develop. What I do think, though, is that this fills a depth spot with a better blocking tight end. Because as mentioned earlier, Grant Calcaterra has zero blocking skills and is more of a receiving tight end. Johnny Mundt is known for being a great blocking tight end, which is something that the Birds need because Goddard was definitely utilized more in the pass game. Kylan Granson was a decent hybrid tight end. Calcaterra is not effective in the blocking game, and then Cameron Latu is a decent blocker, but he was predominantly used as a fullback after Ben Van Sumeren went down in the opening season kickoff, and was even then still underutilized. Philly picks up a great blocking tight end that I imagine will be key to assisting the Eagles reestablish a strong run game that saw injuries to the O-line, terrible play calling from Kevin Patullo, and the lack of a strong blocking tight end to help the Birds with their run game and maybe even get Saquon back up to that 2,000-yard level type of play that we saw from him in 2024. All right, y'all, before we go tonight, we're going to talk about the league-wide free agency news. So, this free agency fiasco got off to a hot start and has not slowed down since. Numerous new signings, trades, restructures, and extensions have occurred, and another event that I didn't even see coming. I'm going to break down my top 5 wildest free agency moves that we've seen so far, from individual players to what teams have done as a whole, whether the moves were good or bad. It's more so just the wildest ones, and there's tons of them out there, but this is my personal top 5. Kicking off at number 5 of the wildest free agency moves so far is the Alec Pierce extension. I know Alec Pierce had a fantastic 2025 season. He was tied for second in average yards per catch at just over 21, caught 84 passes for 1,003 yards, which was his first 1,000-yard season, along with 6 touchdowns. After getting drafted by the Indianapolis Colts in 2022, he had a slow first 2 seasons, but then picked things up by year 3, going for over 800 yards and 7 touchdowns. So, under 2,000 yards and 13 touchdowns across 2 seasons. And the Colts are going to give him $28.5 million per year? That just seems very steep to me. But hey, who knows? Maybe he balls the fuck out during the duration of this contract. But personally, I think this extension is a bit of an overkill. And speaking of extensions and overkills, our number 4 spot goes to the Trent McDuffie trade and extension. So, the Kansas City Chiefs traded cornerback Trent McDuffie to the Los Angeles Rams in exchange for 4 draft picks, which were a 2026 first, 5th, and 6th round pick, plus a 2027 third round pick. And then after that, the Rams signed him to a 4-year deal worth $124 million with $100 million of that guaranteed. That to me is just an astronomical fucking win for Trent McDuffie, and the Rams gave up a fuck ton for one guy. All of this is for a guy who, over his entire career so far, has 8 forced fumbles, 5.5 sacks, and only 3 interceptions for 2 yards. That to me just seems like a lot to give up for a guy who statistically hasn't produced a lot. Not saying that McDuffie is a bad corner. I don't think that at all. I just think that this is a particularly wild deal, especially compared to other deals with guys like Nashawn Wright, who had 5 interceptions this year alone, and he signs a deal worth the Jets, I think, for only like $5.5 million. Personally, I feel like the Rams got fleeced on this one. The number 3 spot goes to Mike Evans, going to the 49ers. Now, this is shocking to me for the sole purpose of I never thought Evans would leave the Bucs. Because he's been there, like 12, 13 years now? He's dealt with an extensive injury history, and now he'll spend the next 3 years on a team that just can't seem to get their guys healthy for shit. I don't wish injury upon anybody else. I think maybe Evans might be at risk for another one, especially because when you get injured once, your risk of getting injured again just continues to grow from there. And going to a team that has just been plagued with injuries over the last, 3-4 seasons, all I gotta say is I hope Evans stays healthy. And unfortunately, we'll be playing him this year because we play the 49ers, but hopefully Quinyon can lock him down like he did the last time we played the Bucs. All right, the number 2 spot just goes to the entire Las Vegas Raiders free agency experience. Vegas went on an absolute fucking spending spree, spending just under $282 million on free agency acquisitions alone. Here's who they've picked up so far. This might not be everybody, but this is definitely the noticeable ones. You got linebacker Nakobe Dean, which they picked up on a 3-year, $36 million deal. Linebacker Quay Walker, which they signed to a 3-year, $40.5 million deal. Center Tyler Lindenball on a 3-year, $81 million deal. Defensive end Kwity Paye to a 3-year, $48 million deal. Wide receiver Jalen Naylor to a 3-year, $30 million deal. And they re-signed cornerback Eric Stokes to a 3-year, $30 million deal. They have all these signings, plus running back Ashton Genty, the best running back going into last year's NFL draft. Plus, they have 2 draft picks in the top 15 of this year's draft, including the number 1 overall pick. The Raiders were not playing around this offseason, and they could be a dark horse going into this upcoming season. And the number 1 spot for our wildest free agency move so far has been the Raiders-Ravens controversy. I ain't ever seen shit like this before. And if you don't know what I'm talking about and you regularly watch football, you're clearly living under a rock. So, earlier in the week, it was reported that the Raiders were trading all-pro edge rusher Max Crosby, one of the most sought-after players going into this new league year, to the Baltimore Ravens for their 2026 and 2027 first-round draft picks. And we thought that was the end of it. However, the very next day, Tuesday evening, it was reported that the deal was off. Yeah, you heard about it right. A day or so after it, the Ravens backed out of their trade agreement with the Las Vegas Raiders, so they will get their picks back, and the Raiders still have Max Crosby. Then, the very next day after that, on Wednesday, it was announced that the Ravens had signed defensive end Trey Hendrickson from the Bengals to a 4-year, $112 million deal with $60 million of that guarantee. And all that happened over the course of 2.5 days. Absolutely fucking nuts. What's fucked up about this, though, is that when the Ravens backed out of the deal, they did this after Las Vegas went on their shopping spree, and they will fuck over the Raiders as this takesies backsies bullshit could cost them up to $30 million in cap space. This makes the Ravens look sketchy as fuck, especially because in the previous season, there were talks of the Ravens telling Philadelphia that cornerback Jair Alexander was all good and ready to play in the season, as they were going to look to give him to us in a trade, for him to only step away from the NFL 11 days later? And apparently the Ravens had an anticipation that he would be leaving the league ahead of time. So the Ravens not only fucked over the Raiders, but they fucked over themselves too, because now not only does their credibility and future business relationships with other teams goes down the toilet, but Baltimore did this shit after letting 7 key players go in free agency. This included all-pro center Tyler Lindenball, all-pro fullback Patrick Ricard, all-pro punter Jordan Stout, tight end Isaiah Likely, who's the premier backup tight end in the league, could easily start on a tight end needy team, and safety Alohi Gilman, just to name a few. They get Trey Hendrickson, but I feel like the team's going to lose a lot of respect across the league, which could fuck them over in years to come. Currently, there's no word yet on a new destination for Max Crosby, and the reasoning for this backing out by the Ravens was because of his physical. So they say, even though he's on the right track to be good to go for the season, but we will continue to follow this story as it continues to develop. All right, y'all, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you all for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, or follow on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, and TikTok by searching at 2nd and 15 or by the full name 2nd and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast. You can also find the audio for each and every single episode releasing Thursday mornings on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Player FM, or wherever you get your podcasts, with the video uploading to YouTube later that same day. Once again, thanks y'all for joining in. This is 2nd and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast powered by Olde City Sports Network. We will see you all next week. Don't forget to stay fly like an eagle, and as always, go Birds!